Hey everybody, I'm your host, John Myers, live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey everybody. Gotta have my notes. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Gotta have my notes. Alternator. Hey everybody. We have fun. Hey everybody. Hit like and subscribe. Right here, right now. It's John Myers. We like to give stuff away. Alternator. Post some more pictures. We got to thank Steve and Becky live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Don't forget Texas Roadhouse right here, right now. Hey everybody. Don't forget right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey everybody. Had a great dinner tonight. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. Had a great dinner tonight. So, hey everybody. So, housekeeping. Had a great dinner tonight. So, alternator. Housekeeping. Housekeeping. 7:30 on Tuesday night. Housekeeping. From the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Housekeeping. Right here, right now. Hey everybody. So, it's John Myers. Hey everybody. It's John Myers from the Kicker UnMasked Studios. Hey everybody. From the Kicker UnMasked Studios. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey everybody. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey everybody.
Right here.
Hey everybody, it is Tuesday night, 7:30, Kicker UnMasked Live, coming to you live from Stillwater, Oklahoma, the international headquarters for Kicker Car Audio, where we like to talk anything and everything car audio, and especially Kicker, obviously. That's kind of what we do here. So, guys, I want to thank you for coming out to join us tonight. We've got a great crew on hand. We got JW back in the house, and we've got Ernie back there, and of course, we can't do this show without the good old Bill Frog, and we've got another special guest we're going to bring on in just a minute. So, got a great show coming up. We're going to talk all things PXA amplifiers, and last time we had a great show. We kind of talked about, Grandpa's Beamer, what we're going to do to it. We're going to basically tell you what all we ended up doing to that car and the challenges that we faced, because it was an interesting one to say the least. Anyway, guys, stay tuned, and we'll be right back after this little short message, and we'll jump right into some fun.
It's been a long road since the original Kicker christened that first pickup truck. It kicked off a car audio renaissance, and upgrading your music in a vehicle was a requirement. America's music machines became living loud over your passion, your emotion, your existence. Outdoors or on the open road, your sound is Kicker.
Hey guys, thanks for coming back and joining us. We've got our special guest, my partner in crime, Jacob Lucky. Jacob, thanks for coming on tonight. I think we're going to have some fun. Jacob and I had a lot of fun last time talking about the Grandpa's Beamer build, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of cool ideas. You guys had some great suggestions. So the car is done. We'll tell you how it came out. We might even show you pictures of it. Yeah, of course, we're going to show you pictures of it. But just remember, if you guys like what you're seeing tonight, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And if you have any topics you want us to cover, let us know. Like I say, we'll take any information you guys can give us to make the show more creative and more fun. I want to thank a bunch of you guys for tuning in. We got 25 Hertz to Life. I saw Saber Sma. We got Brian up there. Guys, thanks for tuning in and making this show a lot of fun for all of us and very entertaining. But if this is your new time, which hopefully it is, hopefully we got some new viewers out there. I imagine we got a few, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell everybody how cool the show is. Make sure they watch every Tuesday, well, every other Tuesday at 7:30. It used to be every Tuesday. So, yeah, make sure you guys hit like and subscribe. And if you guys are new to the show, we love to give away stuff. So, as usual, we got a great giveaway going on. And if you don't know how to register for the giveaway, I'm going to have Ernie go ahead and pull up the laptop, which basically you go to kicker.com/UMweekly, and it's going to pull up the screen you see in front of you. And that's going to allow you to drop down here to the bottom. And yep, it says the promotion starts in 116 minutes. Ignore that, but that's where you guys are going to register. It's about 2 hours behind, isn't it? So what time zone is that?
Yeah, where at?
That's what I mean. So it's got to be West Coast. It's 2 hours behind. So I had to do that math real quick. But anyway, you guys should have a live version. I think this is just my in-studio version of this. But this is where you're going to register to win. And tonight's prizes, recite them along with me. I'm sure you guys can by now. It's going to be the third place winner is going to get the EB400, the weather-resistant Bluetooth earbuds. You're going to get a gray Kicker t-shirt, and you're going to get the Kicker UnMasked koozie. In fact, the gray t-shirt's also unmasked as well. Second prize is going to get the Tabor headphones, which are Bluetooth over-the-ear headphones. You're going to get the gray Kicker unmasked t-shirt, and you're going to get the Kicker koozie that's also unmasked branded. So all kinds of unmasked stuff to give away. Finally, the grand prize winner tonight, well, I shouldn't say the grand prize winner tonight because we got something else we're going to give away beside this, but the grand prize consistent winner is going to get the Cush NC, which are the over-the-ear noise-canceling wireless headphones. And man, I really love those. You're also going to get the gray Kicker Unmasked t-shirt and the Kicker Unmasked koozie. So got great things to give away tonight, and might as well tell you, if you guys didn't know, if you haven't figured it out, we're also going to give away another Term Pro. So I know you play with that program quite a bit, don't you, Jacob?
Oh, yeah. Used to use it a lot in tech support.
Yep, and that's where you, how long were you in tech support?
I think about 2 years.
So that was awesome, but it's been a great program. We highly recommend it, and it's, you know, there's a bunch of us in the building here that use that because it really is cool. Wayne has done a great job with that, and I'm hoping, we had Wayne on the show, a couple months ago. It'd be nice to get him back on here. So if you guys want to see more with Wayne, let us know. So that being said, I think it's time to start talking PXA amplifiers, Powersports amplifiers. We haven't seen them for a while, and do you want to tell them why we haven't seen them for a while?
Well, probably due to the chip shortage.
Yep, that was a lot of it. Just a supply shortage change. I really hope this planet gets straightened out really quick, but I'm going to reach down here if I don't pull myself off of the chair. And we have got one of the new Powersports amplifiers, and this one doesn't have the logo on it. This is one of the early pre-production samples. I think someone took the badge for sticking it on their desk, one of the guys. But This is the PXA 300.1. So Jacob, why don't you tell them what is really cool about this amplifier?
So what's awesome about this amplifier is that it's IP66 and IP67 rated, which are two different ratings. If you're not aware, one means that it can be submerged underwater for a period of time, and the other one means that it can withstand pressurized jets of water. So
it's cool to have both.
Yeah, it's cool to have both because they're two different ratings. That's what's important about them.
And you probably never see that, do you?
Yeah, no. So as you guys can see on the camera right now, I took one of the new PXA 404s, and that's actually where the badge for this amp went. I stuck it on that one because I lost the other one, but I built
it happens.
Yeah. Well, I built a fish tank display and dunked it in there. So if you guys, you guys don't know, but I tested this amp underwater for over a month. It was underwater for over a month straight, the same one that's in the fish tank, and it was still playing music and working fine, so it definitely holds up to that rating. Now, obviously, this is not how we recommend that you use these amplifiers.
Electronics and water generally don't mix very well.
Yeah, but I thought it'd be a cool demonstration. So
it just shows you the capabilities of this amplifier. I mean, if you've got it in your ATV or UTV or your off-road vehicle and you happen to go plunging through a river and hit a deep spot, you don't have to worry about it ruining at least our electronics anyway, as long as they're the new PXA amplifiers, because they're going to do a great job. And I guess we could say that one's almost been water cooled, but
yeah,
there's a lot of heat sink on these amplifiers. What's interesting though, another thing talking about the heat sinks of the amplifiers is I've got one more down here. There are how many amplifiers in the series?
4.
There are 4 amplifiers, but there are 3 that are exactly the same size. What are the 3?
We got the 300.1, the 600.1, and the 400.4.
And there's the 600.1 right there. We'll talk about it in just a minute. And we got this one.
That's 1,000.5.
That's the 1,000.5. Oh, you lost my audio or everybody's audio?
Just yours.
Just mine. All right.
Oh,
We got it back. So we lost my audio. You guys just didn't want to hear me. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the 1,000.5. And why don't you run through some of the features on the settings on this amplifier? Because they're not overly complicated, but there's some really cool adjustments. And like any amplifier, you've got to be able to tailor it to your own needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So being a 5-channel, it's got some of our standard adjustments on it. Like it's got your fader, sub input, which is basically your fader switch for the subwoofer channel. And then it has an input level switch from high to low. It's also got a high pass filter and a low pass filter for all the channels, and a bass boost. It's an on or off. It's either 6 dB or off for the bass boost.
Which is pretty cool. It makes setup really simple. Now, something else is, how much power can you run into the RCAs on these amplifiers?
I believe these ones are 40 volts, right, John?
Yep. So these amplifiers will take a ton of power right into the RCA input. And by the way, Ernie, I did that ultimate mistake. I had the microphone pack in my pocket and hit the mute button, so it's now unmuted, so we're good to go. So, great amplifiers. I mean, great power. Tell us about the power on the especially that 5-channel. How much power is it going to produce?
So the 5-channel makes it's going to make 100 watts by 4 is what the box says at 2 ohms and 4 ohms on the stereo channels, but it'll make a little bit more than that at 2 ohms.
Yeah, it's got to make a little bit more, but that's the thing you're going to notice about Kicker in the future. We're going to start rating the power on all the amplifiers at 4 ohms. They're going to do more power at 2 ohms, but the initial power rating is going to be at 4 ohms. And, honestly, I've been doing this a long time. That's the way it should be, because almost all your coax speakers are going to be, a 4 ohm speaker. So when we switched over and, everybody started rating them at 2 ohms and we had to follow that suit just so, we were consistent, it didn't seem fair, because you're advertising, hey, the amplifier is going to do this amount at 2 ohms, but you're only going to hook up a 4 ohm speaker to it. So you're going to see the power ratings on our high pass or full range amplifiers at 4 ohms, but they are going to produce more power at 2 ohms. And in fact, the 4-channel section of this one and the other one that's in the fish tank over here, the 404, they're actually going to do in excess of 150 watts at 2 ohms, but a guaranteed 100 watts plus at 4 ohms to all the speakers driven. So it's going to be pretty awesome. So we got a 301, we have a 601, a 404, and a 1,000.5. So, I think we got this amplifier playing in the fish tank over here. I wish we had a plastic fish to put in there. That'd be a lot of fun. So just to prove to you guys that it does work, Jacob's going to fire it up right now. And if you follow his cable, it's going to run right up to the amplifier. No tricks, no behind the scenes magic. So hopefully he's got some unlicensed music.
Yeah,
otherwise it's going to go mute.
We got some unlicensed Christmas music coming up here.
For some reason, YouTube likes to monitor that. Christmas music. Doesn't sound like it's underwater.
No, not at all. You don't hear bubbles or any hissing or anything crazy like that.
These amplifiers are pretty darn cool. They do a great job. And IP66 and IP67. What's really interesting about having them rated both, and I'm going to go ahead and mute this real quick,
go ahead and pause it.
They can hear me. The difference being IP66 is basically it's sprayable and it's resistant to dust intrusion. IP67 is submerged, but when it's submerged, it doesn't have the high pressure. So that's why we actually have both ratings. Not only can it withstand high pressure from blasting, but it will also withstand brief submersion. So do not submerge this thing and leave it there. I mean, we're showing that it does it, but once again, it's not recommended. So yes, it's both sprayable and submersion rated. So that's what the difference between IP66 and IP67 are. Now the first 6, the IP6, that's dust rating 6 as high as you can get. That basically means no dust is ever going to get in that amplifier. So that's not an issue at all, especially on your off-road vehicles. So. Cool. So look for these. These should be shipping early next year. We're talking first quarter. That could be anywhere from January to March. I'm not sure exactly what the date is, but they are on the way. It's going to be a great little amplifier. And, I can't really say who it is, but we've got a vendor right now that's making an off-road UTV that these are going to come factory, built right into the UTV. So it's going to be an OEM piece as well. So that's how cool these are. That this new vehicle that's going to be out there is creating quite a buzz in the market, but they will all come equipped with one of these amplifiers. And if they don't come equipped with it, they will be directly wired for it. So it'll be a plug and play. So power-wise, we talked about how much power they produce, and we said they're rated to do X amount of power. So I've got a 601 up here right now, and you guys probably have seen that Ernie keeps putting the camera on the head unit and the amp dyno over here, and got good old JW hiding behind the camera back here, getting ready to focus. We're going to do some dyno testing. We decided to do that this afternoon. Just hey, if we're going to have it on the show, why not go ahead and dyno test it? We know how much you guys like to see dyno. So how much power is this amplifier rated into the various impedances?
So at 1 ohm, it's rated to make 600 watts RMS. At 2 ohms, it's rated to make 500, and at 4 ohms, it's rated to make 300 RMS. And it also has a dynamic power rating of 850 watts now.
That's pretty good. 850 watts from a 600 watt amplifier.
Yeah.
Well, I think let's do some dyno testing, and I'm not going to promise we won't let the smoke out of it. I mean, I've done it before.
Yeah.
You just never know what's going to happen. So let's get my my reading glasses
right here,
hiding back here, so I can see the display.
Getting old.
So Jeremy's going to get the camera focused in here. So what do you think we're going to do first? What rating should we do?
Oh, let's start with the lower numbers and work our way up. So let's start with a certified 4 ohm.
All right, so we're going to go certified dyno run, and Jacob says he wants to see it in 4 ohms. So we're going to hit mono because this is a mono amplifier. We're going to go through and we're going to go into 4 ohms, and it's going to tell me that I want to play track 4 or 9. So make sure I turn the volume up on the rating. We've already preset the gain match on this one to 10 dB. So we're going to go to track 4 and hit start. So let's see what kind of power this amplifier does at 4 ohms certified. And it's going up past 100, past 200, past 300, 341 watts at 4 ohms at 14.5 volts DC. And it was rated at what?
300. So that's
300.
That's pretty good.
So that's a little over 10% more power than what it was rated. So let's go back. Let's do a lower impedance run. What do you say, 2 ohms?
Yeah, let's do 2 ohms now.
Let's do the 2 ohm impedance run. Let's go back and start this track 4 over again. Let's see what this amplifier is going to do certified at 2 ohms. 567.
Yeah, again, it's rated for 500, so again, that's a little over 10% more.
So it's pretty consistent, a little bit over 10%. I guess that means we need to go to the 1 ohm rating.
Yeah, 1 ohm it is now.
So, all right, so let's go back. The dyno's arguing with me, as it often likes to do. So what do you do when your dyno locks up? There we go. All right.
Keep pressing buttons.
That's what I was doing. So that's the best way to fix something, to keep pressing buttons. So we're going to go to the 1 ohm. We're going to track 4 again, press, and this should be a pretty good chunk of power coming out of this thing. So as soon as it gets going, there we are, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 6, 7, 8, 812 watts. So not bad, and that's certified, guys. Certified power, that's more than 10% over what it's rated. So we rate that amplifier at 600 watts into 1 ohm, and it's doing 812. So let's go back and reset the dyno. We've got some time tonight, so.
What do you say we do a dynamic test now, John?
That is the 600.1. So I think that was the question. I think it's not liking the button presses. There we go. All right. So we're going to exit out of this, and we're going to go to a different rating. So let's go back to uncertified dyno power. Might as well do that, right, Jacob?
Yeah.
So let's hit enter. It is mono. Make sure the jumper is installed. We're going to start this at 4 ohms uncertified. We do want to run track 3 to 11. So let's run track 3 or 11. So track 3 and hit start. So this is uncertified at 4 ohms. What type of power is this amplifier producing? Volume is still up. And we've just hit 100 watts, 200 watts, 300, and still going. 354 watts at 4 ohms uncertified.
It's almost 20% more.
Yeah, which is pretty awesome from this little amplifier. So let's go back. Let's try the 2 ohm rating. I know I'm doing something wrong here, guys. That thing just is arguing with me consistently.
Just press it harder.
Yeah, or longer or more time. So let's do the 2 ohm uncertified, track 3. Hit start. Any guesses?
I'm going to say, let's say 580.
Yeah, I'm going to say 600. I'm going to be optimistic here, just for fun. Ooh, there he goes.
Oh, dang.
604 watts, uncertified at 2 ohms. That ain't bad.
Over 20% more.
Now let's go back and let's try the 1 ohm uncertified. Enter. So track 3. All right, this should be big power. Come on, big power, no whammies. Follow old game shows, you'll know what that means. Don't press your luck.
Thanks for explaining.
Keep going, it's still going. 889 watts. That's awesome. I love
incredible.
that. That's at 13.93 volts at 1 ohm. All right, so now let's go back into what everybody's going to want to see, which is, you know, the big power number that everybody talks about, and that's going to be the dynamic power. We'll do it all 3 impedances again. So we're going to do mono. We've already done that. We're going to select 4 ohms. So this is uncertified. No, this is dynamic, sorry, which is still uncertified, but dynamic power. So it's going to tell me I want to play track 1 or 2. So track 1, volume all the way up. Let's see what we get out of this thing. 4 ohms, dynamic power. Get some good comments up there.
CCA turns into RCA, rust-clad aluminum.
I like that. So dynamic burst at 4 ohms, 364. So it made a little bit more power. It's kind of what we expected. Obviously, we expected to do a little bit more. Let's try 2 ohms dynamic power. So start it back to track 1 and hit go. 620, you think, Jacob?
Yeah, well.
It's too late. It did that.
653.
656.
656.
Is it still going?
It's still trying to. Yeah.
657. It's clawing its way up the scale, guys. All right, so 657. Now, drum roll, please. Let's see what this amplifier is going to do at 1 ohm dynamic power. So go back to track 1, hit start. What do you think, Jacob? 850?
I'm going to say 900.
All right.
I'm going to be a little optimistic on this one.
Did you guys see that number?
I guess it's not optimistic enough.
Wow. 1,000, that's probably 40% more power than what it's rated.
It's more than that. No, wait. It has an 850 watt dynamic rating at 1 ohm, so that would be...
But more than the actual 1 ohm rating.
More than the actual, yeah.
So that is pretty freaking cool that this thing's doing 1,060 watts dynamic power. And I think we'll turn it down just so we don't cook that thing full power, you know, running for the next bit of the show. So you guys love dynos. We love dynos, so that was a lot of fun. Guys, if there's any other thing you want to see dyno, any of the other amplifiers in the kicker line, let us know. Obviously, at some point, there's the big bad boy. We're going to have to dyno it at some point.
At some point, yeah.
So we're not going to do it just yet. We're going to make you guys, you know, wait a little bit for that one. So that'll be a lot of fun. So what a great little line of amplifiers. I mean, they're going to be affordable. They're going to be extremely durable. And once again, they produce absolutely a lot more than rated power. Which brings us to the big topic for tonight. So Jacob and I on the last show, we talked about, Grandpa's Beamer build. And if you guys don't know who Grandpa is, that was Kevin Campbell. Mm-hmm. Kevin Campbell was our marketing director for 17 years, I think. So responsible for all the magazine ads and all the internet stuff and, all the manuals, his team. He had a great time. I think there's, 32 people on that team. It's huge. But Kevin retired, I think, back in February. And, we were talking about even before he retired doing a system in his car, and things just got out of hand with schedules and, everything else going on. So we finally got time to do it. We talked about some of the, things and, different ideas we had. Jacob, do you remember some of the ideas and things we talked about what we might want to do to that car?
Yeah, we were talking about doing maybe some pillar tweeters or something. We were talking about, man, it's been a while. I slept since then. I can't remember a lot of the things we talked about.
You also went to Mexico since then.
I spent a week in Mexico. So
we had a good time there. Thanks to all our dealers and all our great consumers out there for making that possible. Because without you guys and your support, we don't do any of this, and we don't come to work in this building anymore. So thank you guys for your support, and thanks for hanging out and watching the show with us. But yeah, it was a great time. So we talked about, do we want to do, a couple 10s, do a couple 12s, single subs, what we want to do in the rear, what we could possibly do in the doors.
That's right.
So as we mentioned with these cars, it's really important to look at the car before you actually get in and do an install, before you decide 100% what you're going to do, because so many times you'll have your ideas what you want to do for a stereo system, and it's like, hey, I'm going to do this, it's going to be awesome. And then you get to the car and the car says, no, you're not. It's going to throw some curveballs your way. And this car had its fair share of curveballs. I will tell you guys, if you're a beginner or an intermediate installer, BMWs probably are not your choice for a first install.
Absolutely not.
These cars, like I say, are challenging. They're not impossible. They're just a little more difficult, and there's some obstacles you have to overcome. One of them just being the car. I mean, not insulting the car. They're actually built extremely well.
Yeah.
So when they're built extremely well, they're built to stay together, not rattle. That makes them extremely difficult to take apart. So the bad thing, about a car being, an 05, it's 18 years old. That plastic gets pretty brittle. So you've got to be aware that, you can't just reach in and grab on panels and yank on them and pull them, because you will shatter them. And in fact, we did have some casualties of war in this car. That was the front pillars. There were some little plastic covers that were like paper thin plastic over the airbags. And those did not survive. The minute you touched them, they disintegrated.
They just crumbled apart.
So always have a backup plan in mind for what you're going to do if something happens like that. And then as we started taking this car apart, I'm going to actually go down here to pictures. And I'm going to have Ernie go ahead and pull up the laptop, if you will, please. So here, as I mentioned before, you need to know what's going on in the car, because how many times have you guys encountered a car that has a strut brace in the rear of the car? So this is a Dyno, I think that's how it's pronounced, performance, stabilizer bar in the back. But, you want to retain as much trunk space as possible, but this strut bar really added a challenge to that, because there's not a lot of room between the back seat area and that strut bar. So you've got to come up with something, that you can actually do an enclosure, completely, flat on the floor, but that's going to take up a bunch of your floor space. We could have gone up through the rear deck. We looked at this car, and up under the rear deck, it is solid metal. In fact, let's just keep, going through the rest of the pictures of what we had to deal with. Tweeters only in the rear doors.
Yeah, that was odd.
And I see this a lot in Dodge vehicles. I'm sure you guys have seen it as well. But having a tweeter only in front of you, it really isn't conducive to sound. So my decision, my vote on that was just disconnect them. I mean, you really don't need them. The listener in the back is actually getting plenty of high frequencies from the front speakers, especially where we put them, which you'll see in just a minute. So that was one, area that was really odd about this car. I think every speaker location in this car, for the most part, well, maybe not everyone, but most of them. And what I mean by that is this is the front door in that car. It has a lower speaker down here. It has a 3-inch speaker, which is really an odd location. That's basically down by your knee.
Yeah.
And then it had the little pillar tweeter up above. So, great 3-way system, in theory, but just really difficult, to figure out what you're going to put in those locations. And we don't actually make a, passively crossed over three-way system that would bolt right into this car. So, I'd rather have a good two-way system than a bad three-way.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
It's all about the sound quality. So once again, I made the senior executive installer judgment call, and we just ignored that speaker in the door. We didn't take it out, but here's a picture of the rear deck. This is the rear speaker pod in that, so there is actually a rear speaker, but if you notice, this whole rear deck is basically contoured metal. So if we were to do an infinite baffle or even a sealed enclosure and firing it up through the rear deck, we'd have to cut out a lot of metal in this car. The other thing we'd have to do is we'd have to come up with some kind of speaker grill.
Yeah.
Which requires a lot more fabrication. You don't want to just bolt a generic speaker grill on the rear deck. It's just not going to look right. And this is such a neat little car. And it was fun to drive, too. I can't wait to get it back from Kevin and tell him we're going to see if we can do some upgrades. We'll go take it out to Hallett Raceway, take it out the racetrack down here.
Yeah.
Run it on the high-speed touring class. So that's one of the big problems with that car. You get the rear deck, which is all metal, so you really can't do anything up through there. And the other interesting thing, and I didn't think to take a picture, guys, and I apologize, this back seat area, this is the back seat, is solid metal.
Yeah, there was no ski hole.
Yeah, so this one did not have a ski hole in it, which was really interesting. So just putting a subwoofer in the trunk like we were talking about, laying a subwoofer on the floor was not going to work. Firing up through the rear deck would have been, really would have challenged, our abilities to make a cool grill, or and now you're, violating the vehicle in ways you probably didn't want to.
Yeah.
So we had to come up with something else, and just setting a subwoofer in the trunk was not going to work. So here's another picture of the other side. Like I say, you see all the metal in the rear deck, highly contoured. So when we pulled off the door panels, normally, in most cars, speakers are bolted to the door itself. And then, except for with, Mustangs again, the 8-inch woofers in the Mustangs are actually built into an enclosure in the door panel, so they come off with the door. But this is a unique situation where it is a 3-hole mount for a 6.5-inch speaker. So, very odd. It just had 3 flanges. It wasn't even a complete ring around there. And it had this, I don't know what that material was made out of, this cup behind it, which I basically called the bass muffler, or the mid-range muffler, because that kind of suffocated the driver. Most coaxes and component speakers are designed to be infinite baffle. They're designed to basically have an open space behind them. They have the mechanical suspension to control the cone movement, therefore they don't need a sealed enclosure. So I thought that was really odd that they had this basically, choking the speaker to death. So it's no wonder it didn't have very good bass, because that speaker and the ones in the rear deck were where all the bass was coming from, and they had a very similar thing, but in the back, wasn't it even harder material?
It was a harder material, and it didn't even form around the magnet like that. It was literally like a cup. There was no holes in it at all.
Yeah, so it was a complete solid frame. So it was no wonder that the bass on this car was absolutely anemic. They build a great car, but they sure don't know how to build a sound system that sounds good. So don't tell them I said that. I don't want to get sued later. So here's that wonderful little 3-inch that snapped into the door. It's its own specific mount. In fact, the mount is part of the basket on that one.
Yeah.
We could have put one of our 2 3/4-inch drivers in there, but it would have been very creative to do that, since our 2 3/4 does not come with the speaker grill. But we probably could have somehow, completely cut that speaker apart. But once again, it was not a great location to actually, mount a speaker, and we didn't really need it. With a good set of speakers, you shouldn't need, something in an odd situation like that. So here is another challenge we had. So not only did that speaker have that cup behind it, you notice there is no opening in the door. So another reason why this car had, absolutely pathetic bass response is that speaker was, all those coax speakers are designed to be infinite baffle. That speaker could not breathe. And I do think, I didn't take pictures of every step of the install, but we did clear this with the owner. We did talk to Kevin, say, hey, we want to give you the best sound possible. And Kevin's an audiophile. Like I said, that man's so old, he's been to see all the great bands live. In fact, he probably knows them all personally.
Yeah, probably.
But he was most worried about the sound quality, and this is a car he's going to keep forever. So we did end up opening up this area behind the speaker to allow that speaker to breathe. Now, when you do that, make sure there's nothing behind where you're cutting. No wires, no window motors, so you got to be careful of that. But we did open this up to allow the speaker to breathe a little bit. And something else, if you do something like that, especially in a door, you need to go back over the edges of those metal and seal it with paint so it doesn't rust in the future. So just some other things you need to do and some other things you need to think about. And then we had this to contend with.
Yeah, the factory radio. That was a fun task. So this radio only had a CD and AM, FM.
It's 2005.
Yeah. So basically using this thing as a source. Oh, and it had no sort of indicator on it as to what level of volume you were at.
Yeah, that was interesting.
You had to guess. So setting the gain on amplifiers, things like that, it was going to be another big challenge. So.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest challenges, when we went to actually tune this, is getting a signal into that. I mean, how do you get pink noise? So we ended up having to record a CD on with pink noise to actually play it in there. And it was kind of funny, you think about technology, everybody's got a CD-ROM, that's got a burner in it. Maybe 10 years ago, but you had to actually get a hold of Travis up in tech support, and he actually had to burn us a pink noise CD because none of us, I don't have a burner in my laptop or a player or anything. So yeah, it was interesting, but Kevin wanted to keep this radio. He loved the radio. He loved everything it did. Being an old audiophile, he's got an extensive CD collection. So hey, power to him. You got to work with what you have, and he didn't want to change the radio, and that's just fine. So we left that radio in there. And in fact, what's interesting, if you notice in the bottom left corner, it's even got some of the heating and air conditioning controls built into it. So just like the new cars today, that's going to be a very, very difficult radio to replace because this is not a single DIN. It's much wider, and this, from here to here is actually smaller than a DIN. So an aftermarket radio is going to require a pretty extensive installation kit or a lot of engineering to make it work. So that was the challenges with the head unit. So we jumped into this car, and like I say, it was a challenge. You notice the nice little carbon fiber trim, around there. So more on that later. So we decided to go in. We looked at the car pretty close, and we already talked about we're not going to use the tweeters in the rear. We're not going to use the 3.5s in the front doors. We decided just to replace the speakers in the rear deck with 6.5-inch coax speakers, and we decided to replace the door speakers with 6.5-inch. Basically, woofers only is what we end up doing, or just mid-ranges from the KSS component set. Jacob, what did you have to do to make those speakers work? Because once again, this was a challenge, and if you're not ready for it, it's going to really throw a curve at you.
Yeah.
Luckily, we got the right tools and the right materials.
Yeah, luckily we have a whole equipped shop. But so basically, to get those woofers or mids to fit in the door, what I had to do was build a custom bracket out of expanded PVC, and I basically used the old speaker as a template and cut it out on the PVC and then used like a router and some other tools to get it looking just right. And then I bolted the new speaker to that. But when I tried to go mount the bracket in the door, I was planning on using the existing hardware from the factory speaker, and the PVC was just thicker than the original speaker, so the original bolts wouldn't fit. So I had to go hunt down some specialty hardware at the store to even get the brackets to fit in the door.
Metric fine thread.
Yeah, so that was fun.
But yeah, we got the speakers in. They sounded great. And I'm going to go ahead and Ernie, go ahead and keep the laptop up. I'm going to close this down, and I'm going to go to the next set of pictures, which are going to be the finished product, because that's what you guys really want to see. So after installation, so let's start here. So if you notice, got really creative with the subwoofer enclosure. We actually built the subwoofer enclosure to go around that strut support brace. And just, it's a lot of fun. I love doing unique enclosures rather than just a simple square box. So this was, like I say, it wasn't a huge challenge, but the reason we did this, we didn't have to make this box this way, but if you guys have watched the show before, you heard me talk about how I absolutely love the sound of a very large sealed box. So by making this box as wide as we possibly could make it, and as tall as we could possibly make it, and doing that cutout and giving it some depth, we got almost 1.25 cubes of airspace for that 10-inch, and we ended up doing an L7T10. So kind of a unique situation, and left room on top of the enclosure for the amplifiers. We didn't want to mount them in the floor. We didn't want to, hide them under a seat. We actually made the amplifiers, they're very accessible. We decided to mount the amplifiers on top of the enclosure. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are, red flags. You can't mount amplifiers on top of enclosures. You'll ruin the amplifier over time. Well, some of the less expensive amplifiers that don't use good soldering techniques, and especially if you're bolting it to a very inferior enclosure that causes a lot of vibrations. In fact, that box is bolted to the vehicle, so it is absolutely solid and integrated to the vehicle. The box, the amplifier didn't vibrate any more than the floor of the car did. I mean, it was so solid, and once again, being a BMW, they're built really well. So that has never been a concern of mine. I've never had an issue ever in 42 years of having an amplifier fail because it was mounted on an enclosure. Now, there is one key area to think about, and this is something that I ran into years ago at one of the places that I worked at. One of the installers mounted an amplifier on a subwoofer enclosure, which is no problem. But what he didn't do is he didn't secure the subwoofer enclosure. So what happened was this customer went around a corner rather fast and the enclosure slid. Well, what it did was it pulled the ground wire out of the amplifier because it was the shortest wire. It ended up pulling the ground wire out. With the single-ended input amplifier, and we talked about this before, none of the kicker amplifiers have the single-ended input. With a single-ended input on an amplifier, the shield of the RCA is common to chassis ground, which is also common to the speaker ground and the power supply ground. So when you pulled basically the main ground cable off that amplifier, what do you think it was trying to ground through?
Well, through the RCAs.
It tried to ground 50 amps of current through the RCA shield. And yeah, that's when it didn't work. It actually ended up smoking the radio in the vehicle because the amplifier did not have something called ground loss protection, which is something else we build into our amplifiers. So if you do lose the ground wire, it's not going to try to seek it through the RCAs. And that's the other advantage in not being single-ended. But once again, there's no real issue with mounting amplifiers on a subwoofer enclosure if the subwoofer enclosure is extremely strong and it's bolted down so it doesn't slide around. So next picture we have, a little side view, and you can see that little notch back here. And once again, it's not just a straight square notch. I wanted to have some fun with it and make it kind of interesting. And the whole logo, this Dyno or Dyno logo actually looked kind of neat. And you can't see by these pictures, but that's actually carbon fiber inserts that they have inside of this strut bar. So it looked really cool. So what we ended up doing, we punched the ski hole out, and there was actually a knockout for the ski hole. So how do you cut a hole in the back of a BMW, seat? You use a dead blow hammer. So literally knock that out. But unfortunately, even knocking that out, it still was not wide enough to allow the speaker to sit in there properly. So we went back in here very carefully, and you can see it actually started here and rounded down. We actually enlarged this hole with a jigsaw to allow that speaker to sit in there and breathe. And very next picture, you will see the L7T10 enclosure all finished with the subwoofer in. And just for fun, because I always like to do extra little things, you notice the carbon fiber? So I actually wrapped the enclosure with carbon fiber and continued that onto the face. Just, if someone ever pulled the seat out, it's going to look really nice. And it really wasn't any extra work, and it really, didn't cost really any extra money. We already had the material. So just to make it look a little nicer, always think about, when you're doing installs, if someone takes it apart, they're going to judge you on this, how good of a job you did. So there's the finished enclosure. It is wrapped in carbon fiber vinyl. It's really difficult to wrap these corners and everything in one piece of carbon fiber, especially with basically this channel cut in there. So to make it easy, if you guys have never done this, basically I made end panels for this enclosure that were in addition to the actual enclosure itself. They're basically like covers that went over the ends. Flush trimmed them with a router, and then I did the same thing with some 3/16" white plexiglass. Because the car is white, just to add a little kind of cool little, subtle visual cue. Whoop. So I just deleted that picture. I've got it elsewhere, but what I was trying to do was hit the zoom, and there you can see the carbon fiber. But what I wanted to get to is there's where you can see that 3/16" plastic. It just gives it a nice little decorative touch. The other thing that does, it allows us to wrap this end panel and the enclosure separately, and when you put that in, you do not see a seam. So it's a great way to camouflage, seams on enclosures by doing that. I've done that on a couple different things. Another way you can do that, I've actually taken vinyl, just a different color vinyl like you'd wrap the enclosure with, folded it over on itself, and basically cut a 1/2-inch strip and stapled that along the edge. And I've done the same thing with vinyl. So it's just a neat way to hide that. But what else do you see in that picture, Jacob? Well, I know what you see because you helped me build it. But LEDs.
Yeah, LEDs. So if you guys notice that Dyno logo is illuminated. And something else I want to point out, that John was talking about little visual cues. John, if you'd zoom in on that bar a little bit, I want you to show the guys how closely the carbon fiber inlet on the Dyno bar matches the carbon fiber on the box.
Yes, if you look here, that's actual carbon fiber, and this is the carbon fiber vinyl. It's pretty darn close. Remember it had carbon fiber on the dash? I'm always telling you guys, take visual cues from the vehicle itself and bring them into the install. And this was definitely one of those that we did that.
And if you guys also notice on the top of the box, remember how John said that we mounted the amplifiers to the top of the box? We made a little
I better zoom out a little bit,
yeah,
so you can see it.
We made a little U-shaped cover that goes to the top of the box that covers up the amplifiers and covers up all the wiring so you can't see any of that from the back side of the car. Kind of ties it all together and makes it look extra clean.
Yep, the other thing is I left a little gap at the top so the amplifiers can breathe. And we're talking, we did a
Key
204 and we did a Key 501. So those amplifiers don't get hot anyway, but there's no reason to actually seal that to the rear deck. You let these amplifiers breathe a little bit, and unless you stick your head in the trunk, you're never going to see it. So it's great for accessibility for tuning, because to tune the system without that cover, you just reach in with a screwdriver and the amplifiers are mounted, almost end to end, so you have access with the space in between, so you have access to tune the amplifiers very easily, which is the other reason I didn't want to mount them under the seats of the vehicle, because you've got controls and switches on both ends of the amplifiers. You got to access them both. It gets to be a bit more of a challenge. So if you can mount amplifiers where they're easily accessible and they can breathe, you're aces in the hole. So great look on that. In fact, another picture that's without the LEDs on, and here's a little bit of a side picture that makes that trunk look very clean and very simple, and it looks pretty much like the rest of the vehicle. Now for the fun part. We had a lot of fun with the front, or should I say I had a lot of fun with the front.
John had a lot of fun with those.
Kevin had mentioned that he'd really like to have what we call the Snowman, or the KSMT 2504s. And we were talking about the fact that we weren't going to use that mid-range that was down in that bottom location of the door. Well, here's another reason why it wasn't necessary, because this has a 3-inch mid-range with that silk dome tweeter. The real challenge of this car was these pillars were camouflaging airbags. And a lot of times the airbags are up higher, or they got space around them. Not this car, because the airbag actually starts almost at the top of the dash and goes all the way up. So if we were to try to build an enclosure on top of that airbag, if something would ever happen, that speaker becomes a projectile. So that is a liability as well. It interferes with the safety aspect of the vehicle. So we chose to do something a little different, and we chose, well, we didn't choose, we had no choice, because there really was no other way to mount those. We didn't want to drill a hole through the top of the dash to mount those little pods. And the other cool thing, if you guys don't know about these pods, they actually mount on a swivel so they can be rotated. Don't we have that speaker around here, Jacob?
Yeah, it's somewhere.
Go over there and see if you can find that. It'd be fun to show these guys.
I see it.
That speaker, he found it. So, and the tweeter actually will rotate around the mid-range. So you can clock it any way you want. And with the speakers mounted in the location you see here, yes, when you open and close the door, it did clear the pillar. So it actually worked out, and it was quite a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, so you guys can you guys see this? Little tweeter twists around the top here, and
that whole thing
rotates, really swivels.
Angle that pretty much however you want. Now the challenge was right here is mounting that to that wire mesh grill, and that's all that is a wire mesh grill that's pressed into place.
Yeah.
So, and first impressions, like, well, that's a very flimsy mount. You hit a bump and it's going to tear that right off the door. And had we mounted those directly to that wire mesh, it would have done exactly that. But what we ended up doing was making a bracket that actually bolts to the door that comes up, makes a bend, makes another bend, and then twists to mate up to the surface of that wire mesh, and then drilled through the mesh and that bracket. So that is all bolted together with a 1" by 1/8" aluminum bar.
Yeah, and
So,
if you guys aren't familiar with that car, that little tweeter enclosure right there doesn't just pop out by himself. That's also a part of basically that piece of trim goes all the way around the top and the back side of the door. So,
yeah, it's the basically trim for the window.
Yeah.
So it's another challenge. Another reason I said, if you're a beginner or an intermediate, you don't want to tackle a car like this, it's going to be quite a bit of a challenge. You might be in over your head. Now, we did mention with those little covers that were on the airbags, that was a little panel that was actually right in here. If you guys are familiar with the 325i BMWs, or if you go look one up, you're going to see like a little strip that's oval, about 1.5 feet long and about 1/2 inch wide. That's where it was the covers over the screw holes. What we ended up doing was filling that whole channel in with Duraglass, drilling new holes in it, and then securing this with other screws, and we recovered it. The material that was on there was basically was like a light beige kind of gray color, and it was completely falling off. And he actually had the car serviced, and when they serviced the car, they ended up basically ruining the pillars. I mean, the dealerships aren't equipped to do upholstery work. So while we had the car apart, we had to take those out anyway to see if we could mount the pods to those pillars, which we found out with the airbags we couldn't. Decided to go ahead and recover those gray rather than that lighter material. So that's going to help those pods blend in a little bit better so they don't stick out as much. And I actually prefer the darker, colors on each side of the windshield. It produces a little bit less glare. So not only did we improve Kevin's, sound stage on this car, we actually did a few things to make it visually more appealing. Mm-hmm. And boy, he was excited about these pods. And yes, if you notice, it is really tight right here on the dash where that pod is. So make sure you guys watch all clearances, make sure, it's going to clear. And when you open and close the door, that tweeter just barely tucks underneath this pillar. So everything worked great. The car sounded fantastic.
It sounded really, really good.
And Kevin was really excited. I mean, I won't tell you some of the comments that Kevin said. If you guys know Kevin, you'll know why I can't. But,
yeah.
Kevin just, even the other day, he had breakfast with Kevin lunch. He said he just sits out in the car and listens to music. And that really is a compliment. If someone likes their car audio that much, they leave their house to go sit in the car. But with that large sealed enclosure and, over 500 watts of power on that sub and these little KSMT 2504s up front, the car sounded great. And he had, rear fill if he wanted it. I mean, I think we tuned it and listened to it most of the time with the rear speakers basically off with it faded all the way to the front. Now, people are going to ask, hey, you've got pods up front, you've got mid-ranges in the doors, you got rear speakers and a sub. How did you do that with the Key 204? Are you paralleling the pods in the front with the door speakers? And you can do that, can't you, Jacob?
You could, yeah. So what we had done in this car actually was we used the passive crossover and did we use the base blocker for the KSMTs?
No, we didn't need to because the Key 200
yeah.
does that automatically.
So we used the passive crossovers for the KSMTs and just ran those basically as if it were a coaxial speaker on amp 1 on the Key 204, and then we used the mids and the doors on amp 2 of the Key 204, and we ran it in biamp mode, and it tuned it all on its own just like that.
Yeah, what's really cool is when you put that amp in biamp mode, if it sees just a tweeter in the top of the pillar, like you have in a lot of vehicles, it's going to set the crossover point at 3200 hertz high pass and low pass at 24 dB per octave. When it does its tuning with the microphone, since it heard a bigger speaker, it actually changes that crossover point to 320 hertz high pass and 640 hertz and down low pass on the mid-ranges and the doors. Which what that does for you, it takes all the mid-range and brings it all up on top of the dash to give you that good proper image. So great sounding little car. And where do we power the rear fill from? I mean, we have already spoken for all of the amplifiers.
Oh yeah, so we just used the factory amplified power for the rear fill. So if he wanted to turn on his rear fill, all he would have to do is fade it to the rear, and those rear speakers would start to kick in. Which speaking of, I don't know if we mentioned it or not, but this car did have a factory amplifier, so we had to find the signal wires, coming from the radio, going to the factory amp, and that's where we tapped in for the signal for the amps, was signal coming from the radio, which we lucked out. It was variable and actually had DC offset on that signal.
Yeah, and actually, how much was the voltage on that? You measured the output.
I think it was
like 7 or 8?
6.5, 7 volts,
yeah,
something
so
like that.
it had 7 volts output. So literally what was happening, the radio was actually powered.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just a line level output. It actually had a speaker, a powered output that went to an amplifier. Then the amplifier, kind of like our amplifiers, used that for signal and then amplified it. The problem we ran into when we put an RTA on the front speakers, hoping that that would have been a full range output, it definitely wasn't. There was actually a bass roll off coming out of the amplifier in the front speakers, you know, in the settings of it, and the high frequencies rolled off as well.
Even the high frequencies rolled off.
Yeah, because it had a 3-inch and a tweeter, and those were all amplified independently off that factory amplifier. So the amplifier had a tweeter output, a mid-range output, and it had basically a woofer output for the front, then it had the rear speaker output, so it had a 6-channel amplifier in it. The other big challenge on some of these cars, which, you know, we kind of were worried about with this vehicle, if we were going to, you know, like we did here, we're going to put those speakers on the pillars, and you only had one parent with basically a power and a plus and minus wire coming into the door, like 2 wires for a single speaker. This car would not allow us to run any extra wires to the door jamb with the Molex plug, so we were fortunate enough that it had other speakers that were separately amplified. A lot of the cars today basically parallel the tweeter with the door speaker, and they run basically just a positive negative into the door. So if we would have had to have run other wires than the door, we basically would have had to pull the doors off the car to do that. So we really didn't want to get that involved. So we were fortunate enough to be able to tap into the wires for the tweeters or the mid-ranges, you know, that we weren't using, you know, because we pulled the stock speakers out and used those to power the little KSMT pod. So a lot of fun, a little bit of a challenge, but like I say, we got it done and Kevin was happy, and that's the main thing, you know, making sure the customer's happy. So, Jeremy, have you got any good comments or questions you want to pull up? We might as well turn to the crowd and see what you guys got to say. So, Andres Gambora says, do you use passive crossovers with the Key 200.4? It depends. And Jacob talked about using the passive crossovers with the KSMT 2504s. That's the crossover between the tweeter and the mid-range. So we did not use the bass blockers because the 200.4 automatically makes them high pass. So once again, if you're going to run the Key 200.4 in full range or 4-channel mode, you don't want to use any crossovers whatsoever. And if you use the Key 204 in biamp mode, it's going to do a high pass and low pass depending on if it's just a tweeter or if it's a mid-range and a tweeter. So it's not necessary to use passive crossovers in most instances, but since we were using the KSMT 2504s, they do require basically you definitely have to block the bass from the tweeter, and it does actually cross over the mid-range as well. So you don't have to use a passive crossover in the Key 200.4. So why not 2 Q-Class 8s? Was it a better fit with the L7T10? And yes, you're exactly right, because of that strut bar back there. We didn't have enough depth to do the 8-inch, which is another reason we would have had to make a really big box and put it somewhere else, and we couldn't seal it into the car. So definitely we could have done 2 10s, but then we would have had to cut more of the rear out of the vehicle. And, you know, while it's not out of the question, you know, most vehicles that's open anyway, we wanted to, you know, preserve as much integrity of the vehicle as possible. And since that ski hole was already pre-punched, all we had to do is enlarge it just a little bit. So the L7T10 worked fantastic, a ton of output, great sound. I just absolutely love the sound of that woofer in a large sealed enclosure. But the Q-Class would have been a great choice. You know, the 2.8s would have had about the same surface area and output, but once again, depth was an issue on this particular vehicle. So another great question. So J.772 says, off topic, but any updates on, I would assume you're saying the L7X. The only updates we have is we have 9 of them in the Bronco, and they are loud. If you guys haven't seen that video, it's pretty amazing. They are coming. We're expecting them probably near the end of first quarter, early second quarter. So we will hopefully be the first ones to tell you right here on the show when they are shipping, or at least when they're on the water heading this way. But yeah, we're all chomping at the bit for them. So I appreciate you asking, and no real change in news other than they're coming, and get ready. So. Anything else? Any other cool questions? Are they saltwater safe? Well, Randy G, nothing technically is saltwater safe.
Yeah.
They're saltwater resistant. Aluminum does corrode in salt water, and those do have an aluminum chassis. It's powder coated. So yes, they're going to be resistant to salt water, but like any good saltwater boating captain knows, when you're done with your boat out in salt water, you rinse it off really well.
Yeah,
so as long as you do that, it shouldn't be a problem.
Even boats aren't saltwater safe if you don't rinse them off.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, everything corrodes. Salt water is a ruthless thing, but we could have put salt water in the tank. It wouldn't have been a real issue. The only real issue with salt water is when you take it out, let it dry, put it back in, you repeat that cycle. It builds up corrosion on the amplifier and builds up a scale from the corrosion.
Yep.
So as long as you rinse them off, if they do get salt water, you're not going to have, even if you dunk them under salt water, obviously, they're going to be safe. Just rinse them off, and, get that off there so it's not going to be a problem in the future. So Marcus Nance asked, Jacob, why don't you go ahead and read that question?
He says, will these amps be good for Jeeps? What do you think, John?
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course they'll be good for Jeeps.
Jeeps, the old Broncos, the whole top was removable, and even the new Broncos, anything you take off-road, these amplifiers are safe for any environment out there other than the outside of submarines.
Yep, pretty much.
Which they probably would work there too, but who wants to mount an amplifier there?
Yeah, on a submarine.
Hey, guys, want good sound of their submarine too, unless of course they're, running on silent mode. They don't want to be detected because they're doing something sneaky. Anyway, different subjects. The Notorious RVH asks, what's the deal with the new small 5-channel? Is that probably the one you just talked about?
Yeah.
Here again, that's going to be one of our new PXA 1000.5s. It's not as small as it could be. It could be even smaller, but once again, to make that thing waterproof, well, almost waterproof. We call them water resistant, but they are submersible. Nothing is really truly 100% waterproof, forever. So that's the deal with the amplifier, is it's designed to go in vehicles that are in very, very harsh environments, and it's designed to tolerate that and last. So, great question. I know Jeremy's scrambling to find more questions for us. So what's Kibo got to say? He is, sorry for the noob question. Nope, that's what we love. We love the new guys because we're here to help. But what's the difference with certified versus non-certified? What's changing? Actually, I don't know if Drew's out there or, Steve or any of those guys can answer that better than I can.
Yeah, I actually don't know.
Yeah, certified, one of them's I think it's a distortion and a voltage issue. I think one of them, that's not rated by distortion. I can't remember. In fact, Big Derek, Big D Wilson in the house, he can tell us for sure. I would shoot that question out. In fact, I'm sure somebody on this chat room's got the answer. So, Kicker Car says, are y'all still making the QMB8? I think you're talking about the QB8. Unfortunately, no. All the 41 series, L7s, which were all the Q-Class L7s, they are end of life. They're no longer available. Once again, to continue making those, we decided we're going to have to come up with something even better. So while there is not a replacement for now, there may be one in the future. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But we're always working on improving the products, and unfortunately, the extrusion mold for that enclosure actually got damaged, and by the time it got to that point, it was just not cost effective to rebuild a $250,000 extrusion mold for something that basically was going to be end of life anyway. So unfortunately, no, we no longer have the QB8s. If you can find one online, it's a great subwoofer, and the output of that thing was amazing. It was 9.5 by 9.5 by 10 1/4, and just a ton of output. That was a great little enclosure. But hey, we're always coming up with new and cool things.
So looks like Andy said that certified means it takes it up to 1% THD, and uncertified takes it up to clipping.
Okay, see, there you go. I knew someone out there. Thank you, Andy, for that.
Yeah,
and
thanks,
guys, did I even mention that right after this we got Andy coming up, Living Loud with Andy? So, guys, make sure if you've got nothing else going on, or even if you do, postpone it and watch Living Loud with Andy tonight. And if you guys are not members of the Kicker Club, please log on to that Facebook group and sign in, because these questions that we may not necessarily be able to answer, there's a lot of guys in that chat group that can, and we've got a lot of our engineers and a lot of our tech guys that answer questions. Heck, even Ernie gets in there once in a while and throws his information around, and Ernie's got a lot of good knowledge. So. Very cool. So, any more questions? Are we pretty much tapped out on questions here? Hope you guys are having fun. Yep, Deviant, you're right. Deviant says the same thing. Certified takes it up to 1% THD. Let's see. Notorious says ETA on the, wherever that went. I just
on the 6x9 horn speakers, the KMXL 6x9s?
Yeah, I think those are those not shipping?
I don't know.
If they're not shipping, they're going to be very soon, like January. So that's the KMXLs, which are the 6x9 with the compression driver, the 8-inch and the 6.5-inch. So if those are not shipping already, they're going to be, because like I say, those have been approved and done. And I actually think some of those have even shipped already.
I think some of them have.
Some of the early
I know
orders.
Last I heard, they were on the water here, and I haven't heard anything after that.
So if anybody has them out there that's watching, let us know, and let us know what you think of them. So, but like I say, great speakers, and those are great for cars, boats, motorcycles, anything you want. So awesome speakers. Cool. Well, like I say, we're going to keep going. We got a few other fun things to do, which, as always, Kevin's car was a lot of fun. It was a bit of a challenge, but that makes it fun if it's not the same thing every time. And once again, don't do one of these as your first install.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it took a lot longer than we thought. I mean, just making the little brackets for the tweeters up front, I think I had about 6 hours. And just bending the aluminum, trying it, working it, and yeah, it was quite a bit of a challenge to get all that done. So nothing you're going to rush your way through, and nothing that's going to be a simple bolt in, plug and play, and you're done. But I think it was well worth it. Kevin was extremely happy with it, and it's a fun car to drive, and now it's a fun car to listen to as well. So, going to go over to my laptop here, and I'm going to go to the next fun thing we have. What do you think, Jake? We want to do installs or fails next? Because we love installs and fails.
Let's show off some of the cool installs we got.
All right. Well, installs is going to be a little different. And Ernie, go ahead and pull up the laptop. I'm only going to feature one car today. And why am I only going to feature one car? And that's because the work in this car is, you have to see all the pictures of it to really appreciate the work. This car, I think, is from Japan. It was definitely not English or alphabet in nature as far as the title of where it was from, but this is a really, really cool install. Someone spent a lot of time both in designing and creating this vehicle. Look at the little tweeter, pods for the dash. You got that little, chevron across the tweeter just for fun. I always talk about how I like, different uses of, different colored materials and different styles and just accents. It probably has no acoustic effect, either positive or negative, but it, makes it really look unique and nice. And that little perforated metal that's underneath, I don't think you can see it. You'll see it in a couple of the other pictures. That actually illuminates.
Oh, really?
So yeah, that's actually really cool. And here's the back of the vehicle. So how cool is that? You talk about creativity. They must have some really good tea or something over there that gave these guys some great ideas. But also, if you notice, he's using Comp C woofers.
Yeah, and those are marine horn components.
Yeah, and like I say, a very unique combination of gear, but it all works. Those are our marine speakers that were the first compression driver horns we ever built with a 6.5-inch mid with a dual neo magnet structure. But those things sounded killer. And like I said, they're great for this application because obviously, they're not fired towards the inside of the car. They want to get sound to the outside. But even those Comp C woofers, they look great in the stall. It's a great sounding speaker. And just all the little, pieces they put into this. almost like a grab handle, and just, and the rings around those marine components. Absolutely, really, really cool work. And no, we're not done yet with pictures of this install. Here are the front doors. And as I mentioned, everything with all the details, there's that little, area that's illuminated. And look at the bar over the mid-range, and that's a CS speaker. So every speaker in that car is CS, but, nice little rib, with a little shark fin, as part of the speaker grill. And then, of course, that beautiful red, trim around it. So what a fantastic install. I really wanted to show you this, guys, just so you don't ever limit yourself to just bolting something in going. If you have the time, do something really unique. There's a picture of the vehicle from behind, lit up at night. A lot of white LEDs, just absolutely sexy looking. And there's the car with the doors open. So yeah, cool install, a lot of work in this thing. And actually, I guess I have one more. Here's another. I think that's a little Scion. Once again, also using CS product, but great install. This one I was actually going to save for last time, but once again, creative use of speakers and space. 6x9s mounted in these, custom-made pods. Another set of tweeters on the side, amplifiers stacked up on shelves. Great install. In fact, even look at the doors.
Oh, component sets.
Great highlights. Once again, you've got the 6x9 components in the CS line with the passive crossovers visible. Great work on this vehicle. And guys, please submit your pictures. We love to show them off. And I know today's vehicles were pretty much over the top and extreme, but that's not always the case. We don't always just feature the most extreme vehicles, but those two just really caught my eye, and I really wanted to show those. So that brings us to our last subject there, Jacob, or almost last, next to last. At least in the picture-wise. So let's go down to where I was before. It's tough when you got your glasses sitting right next to you and you're still too lazy to put them on.
Well, I'm not going to do it for you, so.
No, you're not. All right. So it's time for fails. And it looks like I got 6 of them today. And this one I knew I was going to have to enlarge. How about that for an enclosure, Jacob?
That looks familiar.
Yeah, what do you see wrong with this install?
A lot of duct tape.
Besides the fact the woofers aren't mounted symmetrically.
Yeah, I see a lot of duct tape. I can't tell if that's MDF or cardboard that they use.
I'm going to assume it's cardboard at this point.
Yeah, that's awful. You could do so much better with a little bit of,
And the key is with enclosures, they've got to be as solid as possible. The enclosure should not vibrate, it should not rattle, it should not color the sound. Once again, one of the big questions we get asked, what sounds better, plywood or MDF? And if it has a sound in the enclosure, it's not a good material. It doesn't matter what it is. The enclosure should not change the sound of the speaker at all, other than to control its cone movement to protect it from tearing itself up or blowing. But it should not add its own sound signature, let's just call it that. So yeah, this we're going to have to rate this as fail. So once again, do a different enclosure or go get one. Another interesting install, and there's a lot going on in this one too.
Yeah, this one's going to take some time to digest.
And I don't think we really have to, other than, what a mess. I mean, it's good equipment. I mean, it's got nice JL amps, and I'm not sure if is that a Memphis or is that a Rockford sub? But I mean, he's got some good equipment there, but the fact that the capacitor isn't even mounted.
No, it's
just sliding around, and the fuse is hanging off, and
Well, there are 2 different kinds of fuse holders, it looks like. If you
not only that, if you notice, I got 2 black wires.
Yeah, for power and ground.
So you don't.
And they have 2 red wires on the other one.
Yeah, exactly.
Just switch to.
So this may be all for fun, but it really is all for fun. But there's no speaker wires connected to that amplifier either.
What is it doing?
So I don't know, just things find on the internet, and this is all for fun, guys. And if this is one of your pictures, one of your installs, and we don't mean to pick on you too bad, but hey, support at kicker.com. We'll lend you all the help we have.
Yeah, we'll help you out.
So anytime you have questions, you can call into Kicker and ask for tech service at 405-624-8510. That phone number, once again, 405-624-8510. Ask for customer service or support at kicker.com. So let's go on to the next fail. Jacob, what do you see wrong with this one? Or what do you see right with this one?
I'm
speechless, right?
So, I don't even.
I mean, it looks like we've got Scotch locks, we have butt connectors, we have spade connect. Oh, we've got a little bit of everything going on with this one.
Is that the OBD port right there too?
Yeah, it is. And this may actually be a Chrysler, because I know the Chrysler 300 I just got done working on, the amplifier basically was right by the OBD2 port. So this very possibly could be a Chrysler 300. But once again, what a wiring nightmare. You know, always assume that someone's going to judge your wiring and your install, so do the best you can. All right, are they going to get any better? Probably not. Once again, guys, take care of your wire. It really wouldn't take a lot of work to wrap this wire up with some wire ties or some duct tape or some split loom and clean up all the extra. I mean, I think that's a fuse holder there. I'm not really sure.
That looks like an interface there.
Yeah, that's probably what that is. Like I said, with the pink wire coming up. But here again, if you might know what you've done, but if this has got to be serviced by anyone else, not only they're going to laugh at you, they're going to cuss you because they can't figure out what's going on, what wires are going where.
Yeah.
So definitely a fail on that one. I won't say it's the biggest fail I've ever seen. I don't even want to rate, the biggest fail, but this is another one that was really odd that I came across.
This is probably one of them.
What in the world do you think's going on there?
I mean, you could have at least soldered it.
Probably not.
Actually, yeah, probably not.
It almost looks like they're tapping into that 1/0 wire with a 4 gauge that runs over to the capacitor. And it doesn't really show everything. So, kind of looking at this picture before we got on air tonight, I'm thinking that this is the 4 gauge run that's coming in from the battery. Maybe not. That runs underneath, it goes up the capacitor, and then this comes. I honestly don't know. Or if this actually, the cap's just in parallel, so you got the power lead running from the vehicle up, and over to the amplifier, and then you've just basically paralleled the cap in here, and I'm assuming that's the ground wire that's going to the ground. I don't know. But yeah, this whole mess right here definitely doesn't look professional, doesn't look safe, and no idea what was going on. That's why some of these are fails, because we don't know what's going on.
We can only guess.
So cool. Well, that's going to end the 6 fails we have for tonight. Hey, if you guys, if you guys are installers or, got your buddy's car, if you want to send any of your own fails in, we're always looking for something, kind of fun. And we won't say where they came from. But so many of the fails that, I see looking for this stuff is just like you saw with that head, just masses of wires hanging out everywhere. And you can only look at that so many times. So
yeah.
If you got a cool, unique fail, send it in. If you got pictures of your vehicle, send it in. If you like what you're seeing and hearing tonight, hit the like and subscribe. You know the routine. So that kind of leaves us down to one thing.
Yeah, we've just got tech questions left,
Yep.
I think, John.
Jacob, jump right into tech questions. And
all right.
You viewers out there have sent questions in, and while he's doing the tech questions, I'll kind of watch the feeds up here to see if we got any other questions coming in. So, Jeremy, if you see anything else that looks good, looks like it's something we need to answer, pop that up on the screen, and I'll jump in between when Jacob's doing the questions that we have for tonight's show. So, Jacob, take it away.
Cool. So, the first question. I have a dual voice coil 4-ohm Comp VR 12, and I keep blowing voice coils with the 43 CXA 301 wired at 2 ohms. Shouldn't the sub be able to handle that? Its rated power is more than what the amp can produce. So yeah, assuming the amplifier is tuned properly, it can absolutely handle that kind of power. But again, if you've got a clipped signal coming out of the amplifier, that's just going to generate a lot of heat in the voice coil and cause it to blow, regardless of how much power that amplifier makes. A clipped signal is never good for your speakers. So it sounds to me like that amp probably isn't tuned properly, and at that point I would suggest setting your gains or getting in touch with our tech support so they can help you set your gains.
And if you have the bass boost turned up, turn that down.
Yeah, that's something you want to use really conservatively if you use it.
I think they've got up to a 12 dB of bass boost. You're demanding a lot of power from that amplifier.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds backwards, but if you're burning voice coils, you don't have enough power. One of these shows, we're going to get into detail on that and show you exactly what too much power and not enough power does to speakers and how and why each of them are destructive in their own way. But if you're burning up voice coils, if you're burning out tweeters, you don't have enough power, or you've got the amplifier set up wrong. So it's almost always clipping, causing a speaker to fail. No matter what the amp's rated. You guys know, you've seen amplifiers out there rated at 3,000 watts and they do 600. So that's why we like to do the little dyno thing, and that's why we've always, right up front telling you, our amplifiers are designed to, make or break rated power. So,
John, looks like we got a question.
Yeah,
for
we
you.
do. It looks like Jove and Lara. I apologize if I butcher people's names. I grew up in Nebraska. We didn't have a lot of unique names there, like John, Fred, Frank, Ralph, Debbie, so I apologize if I mispronounce your names, but I'm doing the best I can. So, Joven says, what would be the main difference between the Kicker 08 ZX 550.03, which is basically a 550.3 hybrid three-way amp, and today's CXA 5-channel hybrid amp? Jacob, you want to start with that one?
Sorry, man, I'm really not familiar with the ZX.
I did that to him on purpose. Yeah, I'm just showing my age. So that ZX 550.3, that amplifier basically means, if you know how we do our power on our amplifiers, the first numbers in that, the 550, means that's a 550 watt total amplifier into 3 channels. So it was a 3-channel. It had a pair of stereo channels and a mono subwoofer. Whereas the CXA 5-channel is a 5-channel amp. It has 2 pair of full range outputs and a subwoofer. So I really loved the 3-channel amplifiers for pickups. So I would take the 3-channel amplifier and run the front components or front coaxes and then the subwoofer. And if they wanted rear fill, just like we did in Kevin's car, leave it hooked up to the factory radio and just upgrade the speakers. But the other thing you can do with the CXA 5-channel is you can turn it into a 3-channel, and I've done that several times, where if you take the 4-channel and bridge that to 2 channels at 4 ohms, that amplifier is going to produce about 175 per channel at 4 ohms. And then, of course, it'll do 300 watts to the sub. So, great question. So the last number in that meant how many channels, and the first numbers were how much power. So you could turn the 5-channel into a 3-channel, but you can't turn a 3-channel into a 5-channel.
Right.
I bet that was probably self-explanatory, but it sounded fun to say. So, great question. So, Jacob, question number 2, I think.
Yep. Let's get into it. So this guy is kind of he says, I have a friend with an SQ system.
It's always the friend.
It's always a friend.
It's always the friend that has.
He mentioned he has 300 watts powering each tweeter, but his tweeters are rated for 75 watts. How is this possible? Wouldn't it blow with that much power? So this is kind of on the opposite side of the coin as the last question. So you can add, or you can use way more power than what a speaker is rated for if you keep the signal clean and you're, conservative with it, or you're not cranking it all the way or clipping the signal. So again, a clean signal, you can run more power to a speaker than it's rated for. He probably listens to it at a pretty low volume, and comparatively to not necessarily the full 300 watts RMS all the time. So that may be how he gets away with it. He may have things dialed back. He may just have a really clean signal. But
or all the above.
Or all the above. Sounds like he knows what he's doing if he can pull that off.
Something else that happens is, obviously, amplifiers produce the most power where they're needed in the lower frequency. So at that high of a frequency, it's probably not producing 300 watts per channel.
Yeah, definitely not.
But once again, it's better to have a little bit more power and use it wisely than not have enough and abuse the crap out of it. So, yeah, distortion is not your friend. Power is. So when you listen to something, you turn it up and it starts to sound kind of fuzzy or break up, that is distortion. That is literally damaging your speaker. It's kind of like, if your car has a tachometer, you got the red line, so as the RPMs come up, it gets to red. You can do that a few times, it's okay, but if you rev it up, the red line, leave it there for a while, you're going to have, basically rods coming out of the motor. Or if it's audio, you'll have a voice coil that burns. So
yeah.
it can take it a little bit, but don't continuously do that. Now, on the opposite end, with too much power, the speaker will actually pop. I mean, it will mechanically bottom out, and it'll make a very loud noise, and you'll hear that right away. So as long as you don't hear anything funky coming out of the speakers, it sounds fine. You should be good, no matter how much power, it says it'll handle, or how much power, you're trying to push to it. So, question number 3, because I think these guys are probably getting ready to win something.
I think so. This guy says, I bought a pair of KSMT speakers, and there's a bundle in the box and a little barrel-looking thing. What are they? So that would be the passive crossover, I think, is what he's talking about.
That's probably what he's talking about.
And the heat shrink, and then the bass blocker that's included. So it'd be a little capacitor, which is what the barrel-looking thing is that he's talking about.
Yeah, and the bundle is what we left in with Kevin's car, because that has to go in between the mid-range and the tweeter. That is not optional. That has to be connected. But if you're going to connect that KSMT 2504 in parallel with, say, a set of door speakers or factory speakers, you have to use the bass blocker. So, that begun. What's Saber saying? He said, or smell something coming from the speakers. Yeah, Saber, if you're smelling something coming, that means that voice coil's getting hot for one reason or another, so it's usually clipping. So yeah, don't go for the smell. So clipping is never a good thing. So, I think hopefully Ernie's getting ready back there. We're going to take a little quick break. I'll let you guys breathe for a second, and we're going to breathe for a second. And I think we have some stuff to give away. So, let's go to a quick little break. Hopefully Ernie's ready for it, and we'll be right back. Are you ready, Ernie? Ready. He's ready, so go to break. We'll see you in just a minute so we can give away some stuff.
Music is my passion, my livelihood, and it's in my DNA. My pals at Kicker Marine Audio gave me a chance to take the music, what I love and listen to, at home, on stage, and in the car, onto the water. Hi, this is Jason Bonham, and I want to say a big thank you to my friends at Kicker Audio for inspiring the songs and the stories behind the music that inspires America. Go overboard! This is your time.
Something about your hands on the wheel, got a sexy touch. It's enough to make me and my Chevy blush. So long, take it off with that highway. Turn me on, I'll let you drive, babe. You can take it fast as you want to. Girl, little dirty looks damn good on you. Start me up, Stones on the radio. Girl, I love the way you let go. Don't waste your way in the wrong way. Get out on some 4x4 play.
Surprise! It is rock and roll cool Santa. Time to get some stuff away. And of course, it's real close to Christmas, so we got some Christmas presents. They actually may make it by Christmas if everybody responds quick enough, but I got my little expert elf helper here, so I think we are ready to give away. We got about 4 different things to give away, so hopefully Bill Frog is on the mend back there and got some names pulled up ready to go. Bill, who is our 3rd place winner that's going to win the EB400s, the Kicker Unmasked koozie, and the Kicker Unmasked t-shirt? Jacob, would you read number 4, please?
Winner number 3 is Matt C. from Missouri.
So congratulations, Matt. Watch for an email from Bill Frog. He's going to ask for your name, your address, your phone number, and your shirt size. Very important. If we're sending you a t-shirt, we want to get you the right size. Let's go for number 2. That sounds good.
Yeah, let's
You're shedding, by the way. You got like fuzz on your shoulder.
Well, you have a beard on your nose.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's supposed to be a mustache and a beard.
Winner number 2 is...
No one wants to see my nose anyway.
Lee A. from Pennsylvania.
So congratulations, Lee. And as previously mentioned, this time you're going to win the Tabor headphones. So those are the over-the-ear Bluetooth headphones. It's going to basically boil down to not really our grand prize winner tonight, because we got one more to give away, but our second to best prize we're giving away tonight is going to be winner number 1. And who is that going to be, Bill Frog? Bobby H. from Kentucky. So congratulations. Merry Christmas to you guys. Hopefully we can get this out to you. I think we're pushing it. It is, Tuesday night. So
it's Tuesday.
We're not going to be here Friday. So you're not going to get it by Christmas, but hopefully you'll get it by New Year. So Thank you guys. I really appreciate you registering to win, and we love having you watch and get your ideas and your questions. So you don't even know if it's me, do you? Can't even tell, which is good. I actually look better with this hat on. I think I'm going to wear it more often. Ernie and Bill, we have I think this is the third and final Term Pro program we're giving away. So this is a great program. It's several $100s. I mean, if you went and buy it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, it is, but it's a great program. And there's another great close-up at the amplifier, still powered up and in the fish tank. So the Enter to Win Term Pro Unmasked Live grand prize winner of the third and final Term Pro software package is, drumroll please,
Ron G of Texas. Hey,
awesome.
congrats.
Congratulations, Ron.
That is an awesome software. I really think you're going to love it.
Yeah, and if you have any questions on how to operate, call Jacob, because he knows everything about it.
I worked with it every day for I would say we got it maybe the last year and a half I was in tech support. So yeah, we worked with it every day. It's super easy to use, really helpful for nailing down your box designs, and it can even give you cut sheets and show you what the box will look like physically. It's a great software.
Great, and once again, thank you guys for registering, and we'll always come up with something new and fun to give away, so keep watching, keep tuning in. Keep checking out the YouTube and Facebook channels. There's a lot of cool things on there. And in fact, I'm going to pull my glasses off. I'm going to do one other thing here. If I can see, because I got to see to be able to do this one. Give me just a second here before we completely let go with you guys. And I want to pull up, go ahead and pull up my laptop. I came across something on our Instagram page that I wanted to bring up. Now I probably won't be able to find it. You know how that works. There it is. Just another cool install. And what's really cool about this one, does that look familiar, that background, Jacob?
Yeah, it looks like our shop, John.
It is our shop. So this enclosure, built with 4 L7/8s, was built by our one and only JW, Jeremy Wynn, back there. So not only can he handle the cameras and the computers, he's a pretty damn good installer. So, we encourage everyone, in the building to get out and play. And I love the finish on this box. This is, basically, it's a high-density birch plywood with black stain and then, a varnish put over it. So, awesome enclosure. Thanks for building that, Jeremy, and thanks for sending pictures to us. And guys, like I say, have some fun, send in pictures of your installs, and there's a picture, before the woofers went in. Great job, Jeremy, and that thing sounded incredible. I mean, those 8s, it is amazing how much output you get out of those 8s. So before we go, we want to wish all you guys a very Merry Christmas. I hope you guys got everything you wanted. No one gets everything they wanted, but, hopefully within reason.
Yeah.
Have a safe Merry Christmas, and come back in 2 weeks. I think you're going to be back on in 2 weeks?
I think so, yeah.
And Aaron will be back on. I will be out of commission, so I will not be here in 2 weeks. I will be previously indisposed, so that's all we need to know about that. Aaron will take care of you guys. So I'm getting hair in my eyes, so I think we're going to call this the night. Merry Christmas, guys. Thanks again for watching, and tune in 2 weeks for more kicker fun, and submit your questions and your pictures, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you. Same time, same place.
See you guys.